Okay, this is chapter 8 of Phoenix Incandescent, Once Upon a Secret Story. Isaac rummaged through the many drawers of his desk. His hair fell untidily over his face, and his glasses sat lopsided on his nose. He wore a dress shirt, but it wasn't buttoned on top, and his suspenders drooped down across his legs. Charlotte frowned and made her way quietly across the back of the library. She could not remember one single day in her entire life that her papa had looked disheveled. She let her fingers slide across the bookshelves as she walked and thought. Basil had said that he was going to tell her today. Maybe she wouldn't even have to bring the subject up. You have grown into a strong woman with a fierce heart. Well, I suppose something good came from my stubbornness. Charlotte sat down in one of the chairs in front of his desk and leaned on one of the armrests. You want answers. I do. Isaac threw his arms up, and the walls and doors and windows of the library glowed blue-green. My dear daughter, there are serious matters that you do not know about. I do not have the time to go into the details you deserve, but I will try my best to give you what you need to get through today. Charlotte folded her trembling hands together and took a deep breath. The anger that had been simmering in her turned into a cold soup of fear of the unknown. Isaac moved and sat in the chair next to her. He laid his hand over her hands. I have had many adventures. Some were daring, some were foolish, and some I have long forgotten. But my favorite adventure was when I found your mother. Charlotte, your mother is that fairy that the others were referring to today. We do not know who found out or how. Myself, Barnabas, Joseph, Basil, Ebby, and your mother were the only 6 who knew the truth. Charlotte stood and walked away. Her mother was a fairy? So all that time her mother had had magic. Ebby had had magic. She wiped the angry tears from her eyes. A lie. Her entire life was a lie. She laughed and turned to her father. She tried to say something, but anger blocked her words. She shook her head at him instead. Isaac sat back in the chair. Charlotte, she was the most beautiful creature I'd ever seen. There was this pale green glow around her, and she looked like she was an angel sent to rescue me. I was injured and dying when she and Ebby found me. She saved me, Charlotte. She broke the rules to save me. She didn't want to return to the land of fairies, so I offered her passage with us until she learned what she needed to know to survive in the world. As we traveled together, we fell in love. In order to keep her secret, I wove a powerful spell to hide her powers deep within her. We lived happily for hundreds of years, Charlotte, and then we had you. I still don't know how exactly we were able to have a child. It shouldn't have been possible. Charlotte continued to pace. She rubbed her nose and coughed the threatening tears away. You are the most precious baby I'd ever seen, but you had explosive powers. Powers we were sure would kill you. Powers I hid inside to protect you. You see, we wanted a child, but the fairies do not tolerate a child of mixed lineage. You are either a fairy or not. Your mother and I and Ebby combined our powers to make a spell powerful enough to alter your appearance and hide your powers. She stopped pacing. Shivers ravaged her body. She had powers? Isaac's voice wavered. While I did have a track on your mother, Charlotte, my ill health is also because I am trying to hold together that spell without your mother's or Ebby's help. I do not have that kind of strength. I am dying, Charlotte. His voice cracked. I fear that if I release a spell, it might kill you. I fear that if I don't, it might kill me. I'm so sorry, child. I never expected this to happen. We planned on telling you today, and then slowly releasing the spell so your body could get used to the magic. We planned on letting you stay with us, but out of sight of the magical world. Charlotte reached for a nearby chair. She breathed deeply for a few moments, trying to control the swelling tide of anger, shock, and grief. Papa, will you be back to yourself if you release the spell? He nodded. I'm going for a walk, she said firmly. Be ready to release the spell when I get back. Isaac stood and placed his hands flat on the desk. Charlotte, I will be explaining the situation to some of the others soon. The time for secrets has passed. It also may be possible that the fairies will be able to help in some way. Good. I know I've had my fill of secrets. Lottie, he whispered, I'm sorry. She adjusted his glasses and straightened his hair. I love you, Papa. I love you both. The hustle and bustle of movement and many conversations through the hallways was a helpful momentary diversion. Charlotte stood unmoving in the throng of Magani. She was one of them, but she didn't have a group. She looked over and up at Lodestar. Is this how she felt? A part of the group, yet not? She saw Bo across the room and realized she wanted desperately to talk to him. He caught her gaze, and she knew from the look on his face that he knew from the look on her face that something was wrong. One of the bonuses of old friendship was that words were not always necessary. He crossed the room and directed her into one of the smaller rooms off the lobby. "What's wrong?" He grabbed her hands and held tight. She stepped closer to him and whispered the news. She let him pull her closer and steady her with a hand on her back. "What did you tell him?" he asked. "I told him I was taking a walk. He's probably telling those who are in the Alliance right now." Bo frowned and shook his head. "Telling others will put your life at risk right now if there are any remaining spies in the castle." He ran his hand through his thick hair and sighed at the ceiling. "Am I wrong in being angry with my parents over this?" "Charlotte, I'm angry with your parents over this. There are going to be others angry over all of this, my family included. But everyone's going to have to forgive and move on. It's done, and no amount of anger is going to do anything. Besides, it's not like anyone else is perfect." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm scared. Will you come back with me?" "You don't even have to ask." A small crowd stood around Isaac's desk. Triton waved her over. He wrapped a scaly arm around her and hugged her to his side. "It is fortunate for you that this menace did not know. If he had known your potential, then you would have been taken." Leander turned to her. "We are concerned about your life." Charlotte trembled. She held onto Beau's hand for anchorage. "Is it true that I may die?" Evangeline stepped forward and put her hand on her shoulder. "Nothing is certain. I believe there is a good chance you may live. The magic has been within you all this time, waiting patiently." "We fear two things," Stonebinder added. "We fear because we don't know what your powers are. We fear because you will not know how to control your powers. You may be a danger to both yourself and others for a time." Faunus eyed her curiously. "It's up in the air whether you will live through the transformation. If you do live, who knows how you'll deal with this mentally? You may go nuts on us." Beau rolled his eyes but remained silent. Triton turned to Charlotte. "What he says is true, and it should be said, but I see a flame in you that I don't think will be put out." "There's something else everybody needs to know," Evangeline mentioned. "The girl Raven is woken. She claims that she was manipulated and is sorry for the harm she has caused. She has offered to lead us straight to her former master." "Which is a stupid idea," Fauna scoffed. "I get it. She's young and stupid and was told various lies to gain her loyalty. But let's not forget that she kidnapped Audrey and killed Ebby. The only reason she may have any regrets is that she started to have actual feelings for her pretend boyfriend over there." Everybody in the room glanced at Beau. Beau stepped forward until he was nose to nose with Faunus. "How was I supposed to know that she was using me?" "Calm down. A lot of men know what it's like to be used by a pretty face, myself included." He winked at the scowling Beau. "She's still suffering from major burns all over her body," Stonebinder interjected. "We know not if she'll even live." "Can't you simply ask for directions?" Red asked. "Peace," Evangeline said gently yet firmly. "I will check on her health again and ask her more questions. I will return and let you all know what I find out." The minutes painfully ticked by. Evangeline returned to alert them that Raven had indeed woken, but that she had managed to escape using a temporary portal. The door burst open shortly after, and a dozen centaurs rushed into the room, followed by Wilder and Wynne and their fellow bronze eagles. "Shield the property," Wilder ordered. "We were followed." The centaurs untied passengers from their backs. Sebastian went to work on the injured, and the dead were laid in a row next to a wall. Charlotte scanned the room. Audrey was not one of the dead or injured. "Charlotte, come here." She hurried through the Magani to sit beside her father on a bench. He wrapped his arm around her shoulder, and she wrapped her arm around his waist. He placed his other hand between their legs and opened it to reveal a miniature version of Audrey. "Mama!" Charlotte cried out. "Is she okay?" "She's alive for now," Isaac said softly. Wynne knelt down in front of them. "She was brave. She chose to lift the spell off herself so she could fight the chimeras. We found them shortly after we found the dead chimeras." "Fairies can kill them?" snorted a merman. "I thought they were tiny dust-sprinkling floating bugs that hide from the world." Leander strode right up to him. "Do I look like a tiny bug to you, fish?" "No," answered the merman, "but I thought you were using a spell to look like a bigger bug." "There is much you do not know of fairies. Would you like me to educate you?" "Leander, calm yourself," Layla chided. She looked down at Audrey. "Isaac, we need to take her home." Isaac shook his head. "I will find a way. We've been together so long." Layla sat down in the nearby chair. "She doesn't have a guardian any longer, right?" "Correct," Charlotte answered solemnly. "I was present when Ebby passed." Then, Isaac, you could come with her as her guardian. You can stay with her that way, but you'll have to vow to stay in our lands. She glanced at Charlotte. You might not be able to see your daughter again, but you could save her life. Charlotte looked down at the tiny figure of Audrey cradled in her father's palm and tried to calm the wild beating of her heart. There is doubt. She merely used up all the rest of her magic she took with her. There is no doubt. Sorry. She needs to go back to her home to replenish. It is the only way. Charlotte laid a hand on her father's arm. Papa, you know you have to go. You know that we'll watch over Charlotte, Wynne said. So will we, Joseph added. Thank you, my friends, Isaac stood. You will need to leave immediately, and we should provide you with an escort, Zarok said. Yes, of course, thank you. Isaac hugged Charlotte fiercely. I'm so sorry, Charlotte. I would have never chosen to leave you like this. Charlotte hugged him back. She wished she could freeze time and stay in his arms, but the clock ticked away and she pulled back from his embrace with tears in her eyes. I know. Isaac reached for his bag on the desk and placed it near her feet. It is yours now, as is the castle. I love you, daughter. We both love you. She kissed his forehead. I love you both, too. She bent and kissed her mother gently. Give Mama my love as soon as you're able. Layla approached Charlotte with a large box. I present you with a gift from the fairies. You will need new clothing with the transformation and perhaps afterwards. Make sure you wear one of the outfits and pack the rest. She laid a hand on the box and tapped it lightly. Now, I can't guarantee that you'll ever be allowed to the fairy realm, but we will be keeping an eye on your progress. She leaned in to whisper in Charlotte's ear. I have packed a second set of clothing. Somebody should be with you when it happens, and he may need to wear the clothing too. Layla winked and nodded toward Bo. Isaac gently laid Audrey in a pocket of his waistcoat and let Zarok help him up on his back. Zarok and 2 other centaurs positioned themselves by the back door. We will drop the shield around the castle long enough for you to get out, Stonebinder told the group. And then I will drop the outside shield, Joseph added. I will be waiting by the back gate for you. He popped out of sight. Charlotte, I will drop the spell soon, but I'll give you a few minutes to prepare. A tear fell down his cheek. Goodbye. Goodbye. Charlotte gripped the box. There was so much more to say, and no chance to do it. Why couldn't she stop time this once? It is time, Zarok said. Shields were down. Doors were open, and Charlotte watched her parents leave her life. She tried to steady her trembling hands, but they wouldn't obey. Everybody to his or her room. We must be prepared for a possible attack, Lodestar commanded. The room emptied except for Charlotte and the Wingard family. Wynne wrapped her arms around Charlotte. I am so sorry. You'll stay in my parents' room tonight, won't you? She asked. I'd like to know that I'm not alone in the tower. Of course, Wynne said. We can all stay together in your room, in fact. No. Charlotte finally tore her eyes away from the doors and looked down at the box. The fairies left an outfit for Bo so he could be with me while I transform. I'd like you all nearby, but I'd rather not risk somebody getting hurt. Come get us if you need anything at all. This was really hard to read. I'm kind of surprised because I have had to read this many times before. Bo and Charlotte made their way to her bedroom. The rain fell softer now. Bo sat down on the floor against her bed as Charlotte paced the floor nearby. Finally, she sat down by Bo and sifted through the clothes. A pair of long gloves lay on top. 3 pants and 3 shirts came next. Charlotte ran her hand over the fabric. It was thin and soft and looked like thousands of tiny dragon scales sewn together. In the bottom of the box were a pair of boots and a set of clothes for Bo. She handed the clothes to Bo. Thank you for staying with me. He took the clothes and nodded. His eyes said something, but she didn't know what it was. She looked down at the gloves in her hands. She wanted to cry her heart out to him, but she pushed her sorrow down beneath the fear of her future. I guess it's only a matter of time now. He tossed the gloves back in the box and placed his hands over her hands. Lottie. Yeah? She looked over at him. He put his hands on his hips and looked around the room. Bo, what is it? His eyes found her eyes. He grabbed her hands again and pulled her up to him. I love you. And that is the end of that. The next one will be Chapter 9, The Girl Who Burned and the Boy Who Sang to Her. And I will see you for that tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.